Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I pulled out the Simple Stories What's Cooking collection, as well as a page map sketch from September of 2024. I really wanted to use that grid style over on the left-hand side, but spoiler alert, I didn't have enough photos. Even though I had planned for it, even went back and looked for additional photos because I was like, I know I have another photo. Couldn't find it. So I do have to make some changes to the left-hand side, but it works out in the end. I pulled out this cream-colored cardstock because I am still trying to not use white cardstock as my background. Haven't been doing really well lately, but I am still trying. This layout really does have a lot of girly colors and a lot of florals, and that makes it really hard when your kid is a male and he enjoys cooking. But I just went with it. There's florals on this layout, but I really tried to lean more into the plaids, the stripes, the gingham paper, and some of the darker prints. These photos are of Eli when he went to cooking camp last year. He wants to be a chef when he grows up, and I thought that cooking camp would be perfect. He was the oldest kid there, so I really do wish that they had something more for older teens. But he enjoyed it, and he was able to bring home dinner twice for us. So this is where I am looking at the photos. I'm referring back to the sketch. I really like that grid style of the photos being offset a little bit. So I might have to do this sketch again and incorporate that grid style on the left. That's the great thing about sketches, is you can just make them work for your layout. I knew I would be adding one additional card, but I just couldn't make it work with like 3 additional cards. I ended up adding 3 3x4 photos as well as a 3x4 card. And then I also have a 4x4 photo and a 4x3 photo. I was trying to decide where I wanted to cut this teal paper because I knew that I wanted it to overlap kind of towards the middle of the 3x4 cards. I started out by adding this polka dotted paper, but it actually doesn't end up staying on the layout. I did have to turn the paper around a little bit because the paper was bent and I felt like I could just cover it up with the paper that's on the far right. 2 of these photos are photos that I actually took when he was at home from the dinner that he brought home from cooking camp. And I reached out to the owner of the cooking camp and I was like, hey, if you're so inclined, please take lots of photos of my kid. And she did post a lot of photos on Facebook. I feel like she kind of posted a little bit more than what she normally posted when I was looking at some of the other weeks that she had done camp. But she did make sure to get lots of photos for me, so I'm super excited about that. I was able to get photos of Eli at the stove, Eli holding some raw chicken and then cutting some chicken, and then also after he had dusted the churros with the cinnamon and the sugar. So it's the bowl that he's holding up with the churros in it before they were fried, I believe. He really did enjoy going to camp and learning the techniques, but he did make the comment that he felt a little out of place because he was the oldest kid there. I'm going to get the photos on the left-hand side down. Because I had the 4x4 and the 4x3, I needed something else. So I cut down this 4x4 card just so that you can see the wood grain. I'm going to add some embellishments, so you're not going to be able to see that little red circle and white part of the card. I'm going to add actually my title right there. Of course, I do have to trim down the photos because you guys know that I can never get those straight. And then I'm going to add the floral to this layout. I wasn't really paying attention to the way that the sketch was set up and the background paper because this floral paper is supposed to span across the layout. So you have a little bit showing on the left-hand side, and then a large portion of it is showing on the right-hand side. And once I get this paper down over on the right, of course I had to pull up my photos because I didn't cut it short enough. I then realized that I was going to have the dark brown floral on the brown polka dot, and I just wasn't liking the way that that was looking. I'm going to trim down this floral paper to make sure that it's the same size, and this is when I realized that it was supposed to be like a continuous piece of paper behind the photos. I have 2 photos for the right hand side of the layout, and I did feel like they were getting a little bit lost, so I went ahead and backed them with this pink paper. You can see that I have a bowl cut out from this pink paper. I did another layout of Eli baking some blueberry muffins, and I used a big cut file for that. I'll link that video below if you guys want to check it out. It's a really cute video as well. I did pick up this collection because there are a lot of photos that I have of Eli cooking or baking, because again, he wants to be a chef when he grows up. So we tend to try to encourage that as much as possible at home. Once I got the photos mounted, I decided that at that point, the dark polka dotted paper was just too much for the right-hand side. So I just flipped it over and decided to use the striped paper instead. And then I added the floral paper down, and then I'm going to add my photos up on some fun foam to give it a little bit of lift from that floral paper. Once I get the photos down, it does cover up a lot of those florals, and I'm okay with using florals on a boy layout. I think that as long as it's not like in huge pieces, I'm not going to add like a huge cut file of florals. It's perfectly fine. I then felt like I needed something else, just like the sketch called for, over on the right-hand side. So I do pull out this yellow gingham paper, and I use my border punch to cut out a scalloped border. This particular border punch does have the holes cut out in the scallop, so I am going to stitch on that yellow gingham border. I'm then going to add my title down. The cooking camp was actually called What's Cooking, and there was a little rolling pin that had What's Cooking on it. So I thought that would be a perfect title for my layout. I then wanted to add another border over on the left-hand side of the layout. So I pulled out that same border punch as well as the pink paper that I used to back the photos on the right. So I feel like that ties both of those pieces in. I only had a little bit of a scrap, so I just made it work. It's not a very big border. It actually just has a scallop, so I did have to tuck it pretty close into the photos. But I feel like the touch of pink ties in the photos on the right, and it works really well. I then pulled out a stand mixer. I know they're not baking in this, but I was really going more for color than anything else. I am loving these thinner chipboard pieces. They are pre-made clusters, and I pulled one out that has a oven mitt as well as the word yummy and a red flower. Behind that, I added a utensil holder with a bunch of different utensils on it. And then underneath the mixing bowl, I did add another set of florals. Of course, adding some liquid adhesive to the mixing bowl and adding my stamping block on top of it to make sure that it weighs down so that it adheres properly. Over on the left-hand side, I really wanted to add this cookbook, but I just couldn't make it work. I do end up adding a red apron over there. And then I kept looking through the chipboard pieces as well as the stickers. I found a stack of books, and that felt like it was a little shelf for the apron to sit on. I also added a little heart over on the right, and then I pulled out the adhesive brads. It does have some chipboard pieces on it as well. I found a set of measuring spoons, and then I added adhesive brads to each one of the clusters. I knew I wanted to add to my title, and I pulled out these gray stickers. I'm not even sure where they're from. They don't even have any type of branding on them, but I just spelled out the word camp. I really liked the gray with the white inner piece to it. So I added that right below my title. My title does say What's Cooking with a question mark, but I'm just going to go with it as my title being What's Cooking Camp. I then looked through my color binders. I just felt like I wasn't having enough luck with the embellishments because they were very girly. So I looked through my yellow color binders, and I was able to find a little ticket that says chop it like it's hot, and it's got a little knife on it. I love the way that it looks, and it matches perfectly. I also found a little tag that says let's eat, and I added that over to the right hand side. I found a little flare that doesn't really have anything to do with cooking, but it says do what you love and love what you do, and he loves cooking, so I thought that worked perfectly. And then I pulled out my Simple Stories enamel dots and added some enamel dots to each one of the clusters. Now at this point I'm thinking, oh, this layout is done, but then I remembered that I wanted to stitch on it. So I had to bring out my stitching tools. I do have these linked below. I love this Tim Holtz ruler. It has two different size holes, meaning that one is further away than the other. And so I did do a straight stitch around the brown floral paper. And then I'm going to also add stitching to the scallops on either side of the layout. I pulled out tone-on-tone colors of yellow and pink for the scallops, and then I'm going to use a teal because the paper on the left is teal, but when you look at it on the right hand side, it is going to be teal on cream, and I just went with it. I do start my stitching on camera, but I do complete it offline, so I do slow the video down here so that you can see all of the details on the stitching. I love that darker pink on that lighter pink scallop on the left hand side, and then a more subtle yellow for the right hand side. I then decided to do my journaling. I love this Hero Arts die. Nicole was the one that recommended it to me. She has a template for her spreadsheet that I use. I will link her video below so that you can go check out the spreadsheet. It makes it super easy to write up your journaling in that spreadsheet. You then print it out and use this die to cut these sentiment strips. My journaling says, Eli wants to be a chef, so cooking camp was the perfect fit. The theme for the week was around the world, exploring different countries' recipes. Eli even brought dinner home twice. One night we enjoyed cheesy quesadillas with sweet churros from Mexico, and later in the week it was homemade lasagna. He loved his experience as a young chef at camp. I did decide to nestle my journaling over on the far right hand side with that cluster and then going down the strips of paper. The great thing about these journaling strips is you can make them as long or as short as you want them to be. Mine was a little bit too long to fit around my embellishments as well as that scallop border, so I just cut them in between the words and added the journaling down right next to that scallop border. I did decide just to trim down the last one because it would fit if I just trimmed off a little bit of the edge. I felt like my date needed to be somewhere else, so I do add that over on the left-hand side of the layout next to my title. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. Let me know your comments below in regards to using a kind of girly themed collection for boy layouts. I don't have a problem with it. I just try to pick and choose what works for my layout and what I feel is better for a boy themed layout. But let me know in the comments below if this is something that you absolutely do as well, or something that you're like, nope, I would never use florals on a boy layout. All right, if you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.